Hello and welcome to the Layers podcast. I'm your host Tayo and I'm so happy to have you join us today. The heart behind the Layers network and podcast is to see people grow. So each conversation we have is designed to have something in there just for you. And I hope that that very thing that you take away equips and empowers you to broaden your thinking, your network, and your personal influence. So whether you're at home, in the car, or on your daily commute, relax and enjoy the conversation. And today I'm so excited to have my friend with us, Joyce, or should I say Dr. Joyce. Joyce has been journaling her experience online as a first-year doctor, navigating the current climate of COVID, race, and having really insightful conversations about mental health. So if you want to check it out, it's called Signed Dr. J. Hi, Joyce.
Hi.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to have you here. How'd you?
I'm so excited.
Me too. I feel like we rarely get to chat, but now I'm excited. So I wanted to find out, why did you start journaling? Like, what inspired the account?
Okay, so first of all, journaling in like just I've always been like, I need to write things down. I need to be able to, because I have friends that like have always written all their thoughts and they have accounts of everything.
Yeah.
But I've never been able to get myself to do it. Like I've never been able to like come back home, open a book and write things down.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is as soon as I started, this COVID thing started and all the confusion, I just started writing things down in my phone. So I was just like, I'm just going to write my thoughts down in my phone. And then as the days went by, I was like, something would happen and I'll be like, I just need to put that down. Something will happen there. And it just, because most times there are no friends, apart from talking on the phone to your friends after a long shift, there was no one to really speak to like that, through the day. So I was like, every time I had a feeling or a thought, I felt anxious about something, I found it more comfortable to just put it out there. And sometimes, I started off just putting it in my notes. And then I like started talking to some of my friends in hospital, and I realized that we're going through like similar things in terms of just what that experience of being in ICU and in such a different environment to what we're used to working in. And so I was just like, what? I spoke to my friends and I was like, I'm thinking of almost creating it, because I had it in my notes, but actually for me, it would be nice to kind of just put my thoughts in a creative way where I can also kind of read through it later. And also if there are any other medical students or any other doctors, or mostly my friends in hospital, like the 3 or 4 girls I had there, if they wanted to read it to see what I was going through as well, I think it'll be helpful. So I was like, you know what, I'll keep it very private, like only have like 3 friends follow it, so anyone that I initially knew of the idea of what I wanted to do, and just start putting things there and just make it look pretty really for myself, just because I wanted it to look like a diary, because I couldn't still get myself to come home and write. By the time I got home, I was exhausted. I didn't have time to write anything down. So I was like, everything is so disorganized in my notes. Let's try and make it a page. But yeah, so that's where it started, and I'm really, really glad I've done it, because I think now it was helpful for my mom to read through it, or my sister, or the friends that sometimes you don't want to go through the same thing over again, but they can now understand that wasn't easy there, or like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened. It's more, rather than going through the same story and almost triggering yourself every time, it was nice to kind of put it there, and when people want to read through it, or if you want to know what it felt like, you can kind of like go through that process again. But so it's nice.
That's very cool what you just said, because now as you were speaking, I was just thinking it might even be worth people who either go to therapy or something. You don't want to repeat the same thing over and over again. If you journal your thoughts, chuck it to like your family or your friends and be like, this is what's going on. So when they say, how are you? It's not a vague, I'm fine. It's actually, here you go, this is how I am.
Exactly. Because I think during that time, like my parents were extremely stressed. Like everyone was stressed about what was going on. And every time they called and they were like, please don't go to work, please say this, please, there's only so much explaining I can do. So I can only now I'm not even expressing myself in terms of how anxious I may be, I'm kind of trying to calm you down first so that you can be okay. And then when you're okay, I can then turn off the phone and then deal with my things. But I think actually me writing it down just made it much more easy. Just get everything out there and not have such a heavy heart about the things I was seeing and stuff. So
it's very intense actually, because I think it's one thing to watch it on the TV, it's one thing to read about it, but actually having someone in the ICU, in the hospitals, being like, this is what's happening. And you're a first year doctor, you only graduated last year.
Yeah, it hasn't even been up to like my graduation date yet. Like I graduated end of July.
Wow.
So it hasn't even been it's going to be a proper year of me being a doctor August 4th. So I start my second year. Like, so it's scary. It's like, we're not even like, 6-7 months in and you're telling us we're being deployed, and
it's very intense. Like I was reading through your posts, but actually before I even go into what I was about to say, are you naturally a vulnerable person, or was this was a journey for you? Because it is very heartfelt. It's not pretentious. It's just this is how I'm feeling.
And so I think with my friends, and my family, I've always been the person that is not scared of crying or expressing myself in some way, but also don't want to stress everybody out about it. But usually, I don't know. I think when it comes to like everyone else, it takes, that's why I was like, I had to make it private first, just let it be exactly what I want it to be. No pressure from anyone, no judgments from anyone else. Like I literally just copied and pasted. That's why some of the words are not like, it's not written like a story. It's just written like how I typed when I was by myself on the train, because I was just like, I'm going to put my raw thoughts out there. I mean, remove some friends' names for everybody's privacy, where I spoke to this person or whatever. But like, it definitely was a journey to be like, okay, it's okay. Like, there's no one watching me right now. Just put it out there. Now, once it was out, and I've read through it, like I've looked through it, when you're in your bed and you're like, oh my God, I remember that. And now, like, you know what? I'm comfortable. Like, can people actually read this? Because actually someone will read it and feel like, oh gosh, okay. Like, do you understand? They'll be able to take something from it. But in terms of being vulnerable, in terms of like my own personal space and my own community, that's something that I've been happy I've been happy in terms of expressing myself and things. I'm happy with that, but I've never really on a public level sometimes, or putting it totally out there. I think we all get into a spot where we're a bit uncomfortable, or we don't want to be judged, or I don't want to be like I didn't. So it was definitely a process. But I think because I started this kind of like, I'm literally just putting whatever I feel like. If you don't like it, please just move. Like, it's not for you.
It's not for you. Just move on.
It's actually for me right now to help my own journey, and then hopefully people can learn something from it if they like it or something. But actually, it's an expressive way for myself. Because I could have done it on my normal Instagram page, but it's too much. I just wanted to make it about me,
I completely get it. I completely get it. I love it. I was going to say,
vulnerability is so important. Like,
say that again. Sorry.
I think vulnerability is like power. It's so important, especially in this time, to just be able to like express yourselves. Because I think it's one thing, me working in hospitals, but I've had lots of friends work at home by themselves during this whole period, and I think the more we talk about things and the more we're able to express ourselves, the more we see that we're not the only ones going through similar things. So I think
absolutely. I think vulnerability is something that I learned from one of my friends. Like, and I would say it's like a quote unquote new friendship, but it's not really. I think we've been friends for like a year and a bit. But I remember when I met her, she was just so open about just life and everything. And I feel like, I don't know if it's a personal Tayo thing, or it's a Tayo is Nigerian thing, where it's very uncomfortable just to express really deep emotions, how you're really feeling about something. Like, it's very rare to be like, oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed because of XYZ, or like, but I feel like actually our relationship and seeing how she's been vulnerable actually changed me, and I actually feel like I'm actually mentally healthier.
Exactly.
From that friendship.
I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree.
So like I said before we started recording, I was like, I've read through all your posts, and one thing that I was saying to my sister that I realized in your post as well, I was saying to my sister, it's so funny because everyone was like, oh, everything is closed but work. Why are we still going to work? This was like in March. And then everyone was like, okay, thank God my office is like, we can stay at home now. And it just felt
Yeah.
like in 3 weeks we'll be back to normal, in a month tops. And here
Yeah.
we are almost 4 months later. It felt like there was
Mhm.
a real calm before the storm. Like
Yeah.
you were in Lagos as well.
So literally before I left for Lagos, so Lagos was in March. I don't even know what date that was, but that was before I left. Let's say the week before I left. I obviously had heard about coronavirus in Asia and things like that, but no one was really talking about it in my hospital. Nobody was really
Yeah.
talking about it here. And this is where we need to be, as humans, sometimes when you feel like something is not affecting you, you almost push
Yeah.
it away. That's not my
Yeah.
problem. That's, oh my God, that's so sad for them, but it's not my problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I
Mm-hmm.
went to Nigeria and everything seemed fine. 3 days in, obviously you're watching CNN. My dad doesn't watch anything apart from CNN. And it's now you're not seeing global perspective. You're like, okay, it's happening in China. It's happening it was more Italy. It was happening in Italy. The UK, we have numbers coming up. And I was still calm. I was like, still like, there was nobody talking about anything in my hospital. It's okay. And then friends that lived in Nigeria would see me and they would be like, what are you doing here? There's corona. Are you bringing corona to us, Joyce? You need to be careful. So I was like, okay, now like everyone's totally like,
Yeah.
this is a
Now
problem.
we're
Even though it felt like it wasn't a problem in the UK just 5 days ago, like when I left, I was like, fine, okay. And then obviously leaving, my parents were my dad was like heartbroken. My dad, look,
no.
first of all, he's loved the fact that he has the doctor. That's my doctor. That's my daughter. He told me when he speaks funny, his neck is broken. I should investigate. I'm like, the only investigation I can do is the same thing you can do on Google, but fine. But then he found himself literally like, as I was going onto there, he always gets emotional to be honest every time I leave Lagos. But he
Yeah, me
was so
too.
emotional. He almost felt like he was like, I was, he was just saying, you're going to war and there's nothing I can do. You're not listening to me. No one is taking me serious. She can't go back.
No.
It's very dangerous. And at this point, I was still thinking, it's
Yeah,
still okay. It's
relax.
not bad. So then there was a calm before the storm because then we got to hospital. They started talking about how we're a few days behind Italy, how Italy is the worst. And of course, you're still here thinking, no, Italy is different. They don't have the same health system as here. You want to give yourself an excuse for
Yeah,
why it can't happen to you. And
absolutely.
then within like 2 weeks of like preparations, we had 8 a.m. meetings every day. This is how the hospital was changing through the whole like 2 weeks. And then they then gave us timetable. All right, there's a new IC. Like it literally just came boom. All the wards were COVID. I think they only had like 2 COVID negative wards, which were the surgical wards. There was a new ICU forming. Then it just everything almost like changed within like, so you had 2 weeks of okay, and then 1 week of like what is going
Yeah,
on, and we're in it. Like there's no turning back.
no turning
And that was
back.
like that was just new reality. I wasn't a surgical FY1 anymore. I was in ICU, in new departments, learning how to use ventilation machines and learning how to put in different things I wouldn't have been doing anytime now, but you then had lots of courses and stuff to like
Take you
help us
through
out
it.
for when we got there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was definitely this, I think everybody felt this as well. I was like, I'm going to the office. Office said we shouldn't come in. Then I'm stuck here. And
Yeah.
oh my God, I want to go back to work. And okay, fine. I'm okay being at home. And then now everybody's like, don't let us come back to work. Like,
Yeah.
we're okay working from home as long as we can see our friends. But, yeah.
It's wild. I think because it started off with people buying toilet roll and pasta and people kind of tossing them out. And I feel like, oh my gosh, those were such simpler times. And I really wasn't taking it that serious. And I feel like the turning point for me was I watched the news on a Thursday and it said the death toll in the UK is 71. And on the Tuesday, it was like 1,100. I was like, no, I'm sorry. I remember that day. I literally got up in the morning because I watch the news every morning, every evening.
Yeah.
I literally just got up, got dressed, went to Tesco's, did all the shop I could shop from Tesco's, and I stopped at Sainsbury's. You really didn't know what was going to happen.
I had no idea.
Like, I close or no.
No, I couldn't find pasta either. I was like, I can't find pasta. Everybody seems to be buying pasta. I went to corner store. I saw pasta for £3. I was like, I can't do it. My mom
I
was like,
can't
you
do
better
this.
get back. You better get back there and buy all the pasta. My son is staying with you. You need to be able to feed him. And do you know what? We bought the crappiest pasta that we haven't even eaten it because after 3 weeks of everyone buying everything in the store, there was so much food. There was so much food. So I couldn't prepare as much as everyone else because obviously I was stuck in Nigeria as well. But like, I was like, "Oh, hopefully it should be okay. Hopefully you'll be able to survive.
This should be over soon.
It should be over soon, maybe 1 month or two." Didn't ever think it'd be
Oh,
this long.
okay. So now that everything is like it's gone full force, I feel like April was the worst month for me mentally,
Yeah.
and early May. And it it almost felt like, even in, maybe I'm being dramatic, but it almost felt like even in the atmosphere in London, it just felt like
Yeah.
something bad was just happening. It
What's
was just a lot
happening?
of loss, a lot of grief.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who didn't even have people that were personally close to them that were affected by COVID, but they were losing sleep, they were having heart palpitations,
Mm.
they were really mentally going through it. What was the point for you that you were like, oh my gosh, I can't, this is a lot for me now?
Look, I think what this pandemic induced, so you know what, in general, I think in Nigerian community or just in our communities in like as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
we don't talk enough about mental health because you think of the extreme version of mental health, but like
Yeah.
it's anxieties, the amount of anxiety and low mood that people went through during this time was crazy. And I think for me, my thing in what I experienced mostly that I didn't in the past was being anxious. Okay. Now I would go to work, literally I'll go to work every day. Can I go to you? Okay, yeah. So I'll go to work every day. Imagine me waking up. So I wake up in the morning, 5:45, get dressed, 6. I need an hour in the morning. By 7 o'clock, I'm out. Now I'm going to work where everyone is at home, where I know
Mm-hmm.
everyone's stressed, where I feel like I'm getting myself in. I'm getting myself in a situation where that it could also affect it. Yeah, okay, good. Sorry.
It's
So I'm also
fine.
getting myself in a position where I could affect my um I could bring in corona and affect my brother that was literally like staying in the house with
Mm,
me. There's so much pressure on my head, but also I'm getting on a tube that is by myself. I'm trying to tell every morning you're like, I'm trying to hype myself. I had to listen to gospel. That's the only thing that could put me through it because I was like,
yeah.
I had to look in the Bible and look for verses. I didn't know there were so many verses that were fighting against being anxious and being fearful. But like you'll be on the tube, I'm totally by myself and I'm just there like praying, like I'm going to be fine, I'm going to be
Yeah.
okay. I need to be less anxious, just calm down a bit. You're okay. Because the truth is that you go to work and you're thinking, oh, who's here today? Who are the patients here today? Who is not
Mm.
here today means somebody has died. Do you understand?
Oh,
And it's only when I'm speaking, it's only when I speak to the other people, like we've been having like debrief, like just speaking to each other that have been through it together. We've gotten much more closer, all of us being ICU together, but we sit down and we're
mm,
like, you don't understand that when we came to work every day, not only do we have all these things of like, I need to be careful. I don't want corona to
yeah.
come back to my house. I need to make sure I wash my hands. I'm really stressed. My parents are worried. My friends are
Mm,
worried. I'm thinking, are my patients okay? Was that man I saw yesterday okay? Did he make it through
mm,
the night? Like you have that baggage coming in every day before you're not like, oh, okay, he's okay. Oh no, he's not. Do you understand? So
yeah.
it was so much. There was so much pressure. There was so much like anxiety, and the only thing that could help me was like listening to gospel music in the morning and just calming myself down. And what's so interesting is that it doesn't matter if you were working in ICU or you were at home,
Yeah.
because at least in ICU, I could go there and be like, okay, I can control something. Whatever you tell me to do, I can do it and it should be okay. I'm trying to
Yeah.
help out. Being at home, you're almost like you cannot walk anywhere. You can't do anything. You switch on the news. It's scary.
You
You get
can't
the
escape
dental
it.
Yeah, you get the death toll notification on your phone. It's crazy. Like it's just, I think it really induced a lot. My brother, like obviously he can share his own story, but he would call me in the morning. He'll be like, I panicked yesterday. I just thought of corona and I panicked, and then I got to calm myself down. But that's never happened to me. And I was like, look,
Mm.
if that happens to you again, just come and wake me up, because
Yeah.
you're scared. You have a little itch behind your throat and you think you have corona,
Oh
and
yeah.
so it was scary. But I think my main thing was, it was going to work every day. That really made me quite like anxious. It just made me, I had to learn how to just calm myself down, how to like just seek for God's peace and just be like, you'll be
Yeah.
fine, do your part, get back home, wash your body, go to bed, start again. But it was definitely a lot. And I think
Mm.
and that's what I made sure I even wrote about. Like, there's a point where I knew I didn't have I was just typing things. So it's
Yeah.
not like because I don't want to trigger anyone as well in their own, if they were
Mm.
anxious about things.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound negative, but I'm like, everyone's calling you hero, and that's great, I guess, but nobody's trying to be a hero. Like,
Yeah.
being a hero is not what anybody wants to do right now.
We're
You
just
just
trying to
want to
get
be
by.
safe. We're literally just trying to get by. We're trying to be safe. We're trying to do your job as much as you can, and you're also trying to take care of your mental health as you do that, because
Yeah.
it's really not easy. And I think even now we're all going through some sort of like burnout stage, because I've just
Yeah.
really been working on crazy hours, 12 hours, 12 hours, 12 hours, maybe 2 breaks, 12 hours
Mm-hmm.
again for the rest of the week. And then we go on another timetable, and now even coming back to just a normal 9 to 5 and a few on calls here and there, I just feel exhausted. Like, every
Yeah.
time I have a day off, I just want to like sleep a bit. But
Yeah.
it's nicer than before, where you feel like you're going to a war. You're just carrying your
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like it
every
was never
morning you're
ending.
at war, but it's like you're by yourself. There's nobody else on this train going to war with you.
Oh, I don't completely get it, but I get it. It just it's very intense, and I can imagine that after this, I think a lot of our health workers just need a long break. Like, they need time off.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they're going. I don't know
And the
how
truth is,
it's
I
going
don't
to
know how that
work,
could happen,
you
because
know.
it may not be corona. Corona may be easing off now, but then all the other conditions are coming up. All the waiting lists are now
Mm,
around. There's no rest. There's really no
my
rest.
gosh,
Just continue. You take annual leave. So I've taken annual leave today.
that's
You just
great.
have to take your annual leave when you can take it. But apart from that, they can't create more time for
Mm,
health professionals to have off. It's just business as usual.
business as usual. It's important work. Um, One thing that I think is very clear as people journey through all your posts on Instagram is it. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels as though you've come through, as you said, going to war with this kind of virus and navigating all these spaces, that you've kind of found God as a protector and defender. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just, oh, I have a relationship with God, but it's, oh, it seems like this is new territory for you in some way, where it's like, oh, but he's actually my defender, he's actually my protector. Like,
Yeah.
how's your faith really giving you peace this time?
I think it's been so important, because you know what, with my friends, we always, as a friend in particular, where I'm like, I just want to grow in my faith, I want to grow in my journey. And sometimes
Mm,
you grow when you're going through the hardest thing, or when you're stressed about
yeah,
exams. I was like, I want it to be a 24/7 thing in
yeah.
general. But like, literally this whole period, the only thing that could actually calm me down was actually reading the Bible, or to look for a verse, or literally just googling,
Mm,
verses about this, and then
yeah.
reading story. Do you understand? That's the only thing that could calm me down. And to be honest with you, like, I believed in God, and I've always had my faith, and I've always wanted to grow. But I think this also was a push in terms of
Yeah,
like,
it's a
this is the
crushing.
only person I can rely on. Like, this is the only person that can actually protect me right now.
Mm,
As in, not even person, it's not a person, but do you understand? This is the only thing that could
yeah.
actually protect me right now. My parents are so far away from me. My friends aren't around with me.
Mm,
Everyone in hospital is trying to work. There's only so much they can do for you. The only thing
yeah.
that could keep me sane, that could keep me calm, that could make me feel relaxed, was actually just reading the word of. I even got my new cute Bible. Like, I just
Oh,
reading the word, and just taking it in slowly. Like,
yeah.
that's the only thing that could help me through it. But I'm
Yeah.
just you are. And I just want to continue to build, because I think sometimes what happens is that you look for God when it's like stressful, and then you almost forget. You're like, thank you, you've done your part now, and you move. But like, nah, this is like it's a lifelong process, but I'm growing in it. So I wouldn't say like, I think I'm just growing in my faith and just trying to learn every day,
and
how
it's
to be
day by
better
day.
and how to be more like him. Exactly.
It's day by day. I think there's this song, it's called I think it's by House Fires, and it's called Yes and Amen. And there's a line in the song where it goes, my confidence is your faithfulness. And I think when I've spiraled in this period, I've often just thought, just count your blessings, go back and just think about it, because that keeps you on track. Like your confidence that, and I'm sure that even after all this is over and there's some kind of normality in life, it would be, I went through this journey and he was there with me. I think those things you don't lose. It's like the best relationships are born in the trenches. And when it's with God, you don't really lose that, because that's your companion through hard and good times.
I totally agree. That's literally it. But I'm grateful to God. Thank you, Jesus. Like, literally, there's no way I would have no way I would have made it. But
Bibles have been flying off the shelf. They were literally sold out.
Everyone's pandemic. Look at my Bible is so cute. A nice green Bible. It's my Bible. Anyway, it's a nice green Bible. I actually bought the male version instead of the female version, but because it's green.
Oh, I like that color. Oh my gosh, that's so nice. Send me the link.
I'll send you the link. And this is He Reads Truth, but I was like, it's a Bible, doesn't matter. I like green. There's a She Reads Truth version, a female version. But has all the stories and it's good.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say another thing I noticed, but actually, before I go into that, speaking on mental health, so we talk about mental health, and I think another thing I noticed was actually, it feels like, I don't know if this is new for you as well, that you're more aware of like your emotions, your moods, your mental health, of course, and then it made me think. There was a time I was sleeping at 6 a.m. and waking up my normal time at like 9. And that is, during the day, my knee would start twitching, my elbow would twitch, or like my ear would twitch. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So obviously you go on Google, you're like, oh my gosh, I have XYZ. But were there any physical symptoms? Because I feel like people don't know that they're physical symptoms of stress.
Yeah, all that twitching, and because I used to have this thing where your eyes are it's all
my eyelids would be.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any physical symptoms during this time. I think apart from maybe having a bit of like pulp, almost like your heart, my heart got a bit, I could feel my heart beating. Obviously, thank God it's beating, but like I could feel, there are times where you could just feel it beating more than usual. But apart from that, I think, the other things people can experience, they can have really bad headaches. There are lots of things that could be associated with like anxiety in general. I remember my mom actually told me, she was like, Jojo, like I've not been okay. Like the last couple of weeks since you've been working there, like I've not been able to sleep because my heart is beating so fast. Like it's just, and I'm like, she's not also someone that experienced like anxiety or anything before, but like, I don't know. I feel like it's so important for us to just educate ourselves and just be a bit more informed on things like depression and anxiety. And even if it's lowest grade, it still has an effect on you. It will still have a negative effect on you. So important. We are just, I think mental health is so important, and I will forever advocate for that. I think
absolutely,
because it changes. You go from being such a confident person to being like, you know what, I get stressed, but I work well in stress. Like I get this, I can deal with it. No, because there's a moment where those stresses or those extra, things you allow in can actually have a negative consequence on you, and things start off slowly. So you can be like, I'm feeling a little bit low, but it's only a little. If you don't take care of that little bit of low mood, it can lead to something else and something else. So I think it's important that we have like open conversations, and even if you're not comfortable speaking to people around you, therapy is so important. Like if you need to talk to someone else outside the circle, like it, just speak to someone or look for something that would help you get through those feelings. Don't just try and push it away. That's where we get in trouble,
Yeah, I agree. I also think it's important to find find that one friend that you
Yeah,
can rely on, and not rely on in the sense of this is your dumping ground, but this is just someone that you can journey through life with, and they know what's
exactly.
happening. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
found that so helpful. I was going to say, actually, one of the things is having a strong support system, and
That is,
it's so important. And it made me think a lot about people during this lockdown that either had just moved to London, or
yeah,
are in a different place that they're not normally. And I just thought it's important to allow ourselves be inconvenienced, because sometimes you actually think, oh, this is my colleague, this is my friend, they're seeming a bit weird recently, but you don't want to have that uncomfortable conversation. And maybe sometimes you're like, I don't want to now sit, and then they'll start crying and I don't know what to do. And sometimes people go through all these motions, but allow yourself
yeah,
be inconvenienced, because
yeah.
people need you.
People do, and I think that was one of the things from like one of my colleagues in hospital. Like, she was away from her family were in Birmingham, her housemates had moved out, so she was doing all these shifts, but she was coming home by herself. And luckily I have my brother. He actually
Yeah.
has no idea. He has no idea how important, like I tell him all the time, like, thank God you're here, like
Yeah.
how important it was for him to be here with me during all of this, even though it was scary that I could be bringing something. It's just having a support system is so important, but also being able to identify where people may be,
Mm.
where you're like, I haven't spoken to this person in a long time. I think relationships, the way you have your relationships have changed, because
Yeah.
you can't see people that often. So you had to learn. I was like, even if I was coming back from shifts or whatever, I needed to make sure I called that friend, I called this person, I picked up
Mm.
the phone, because you need to, still be a friend, and you still need to be able
Yeah.
to look out for your people that
Mm.
are around you. You may not be able to look out for the whole world or save everyone, but if you have
Yeah.
one person that you're like, you know what, I just need to check in on her and make sure she's
Yeah.
okay. I think that goes a long way. And if we all have a responsibility where it's just one person, one person, one person, you
Yes.
see, think it will just level up somehow.
I
But
I agree.
yeah, if I didn't identify that with my friend, I knew she was away. Like, it was not easy for her.
Mm.
It wasn't easy for her.
I agree with you. I'd actually like to add on to that. I think even with checking up on people, so I have like a to do, I have like a planner where I have my to
Yeah,
do list for the day, because I will forget.
yeah.
I will literally forget. And I actually write it down. I check up on this person. I actually write
That's
it down. I check
why
up on
I
this
write down, like,
person.
today is I'm talking to Simi. Tomorrow I'm, just to make sure
Yeah,
that I don't forget you.
yeah,
No.
yeah. Okay. So, did you get all those cards from all the kids, by the way?
Oh, that was for the one you saw with the sister.
Yeah.
Yes, so they actually made, and that was actually before the spike happened. Obviously, when the children were still in nursery school, they had made lots of cards for the ward, and so
So
we were
cute.
looking at them because we thought it was cute. That was before we even thought it was going to be crazy. Like,
When I
these
go
kids
crazy, we
are
don't have time
so
for cards.
now, like, so it was nice. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's switch gears and let's talk about race. So I
Great.
actually feel this whole thing was building up, because I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the pandemic, it was the French doctors that were like, let's test a vaccine on Africans in
Africans.
Congo. It's just like they're not your test puppies. It was the
Mhm.
high ethnic ethnic minority dates deaths. And I think there's an article in the Telegraph about how campaigners are manipulating the data to further victimhood. And
Mhm.
then it just became even Boris getting sick and being like, we're thankful to our immigrant doctors. And on the screen it was a doctor, I think, from New Zealand and Portugal, and there wasn't nothing necessarily wrong with that, because they did their job and they were great at it. But it was
Yeah.
just in the background of all these ethnic minorities dying, and immigration being such a huge topic in the past few years, and then having just, oh, congratulations, thank you so much to our immigrant doctors. But the face of the act, I don't know, it was a bit, you know what I'm trying to say. Then
Yeah.
Ahmad,
I
the
definitely.
video of Ahmad came out, and then
Exactly.
Joe, it was a lot. I feel like it was just
It was
piling on, piling
layering,
on,
layering,
piling on.
piling up. Yeah. No, I think it's interesting because also Corona started around black, black people can't get Corona. I think we're the ones that probably
Yes,
made that
yes.
rumor. We're probably the
Well,
ones that
like
made that rumor. So that was like the total opposites of what's going on. I think in terms of race, like, in the hospital, I work in a hospital in East London, and I love it just because like on my ward, the nurses are all Nigerian, Ghanaian, Jamaican, Indian. It's like united that from so many different places. And when I even say Nigerian, I'm saying like like they have their proper Nigerian accents and it just feels like home for me. So do you understand? So there's so many, you look around and we're just so many black people, so many brown people, so many people from different environments that work here. Again, maybe we play into the stereotype because you have lots of people that are the porters and at, you know, at the bottom of whatever you want to call it, but they work really hard because there's nothing that runs that hospital without the porters, without the nurses, without, you know, the doctor, you know, all of that. So I think, yes, things were building up from the beginning of this pandemic. And, you know, people actually have time now to focus on key issues and be like, we're not having this happen. What's going on? Because these are news. These are things that we may have also avoided. We may have not been aware of, you know, the testing of, you know, in France, or, the, you know, French wasn't test. We may have just like, because we're not at home or whatever, you have missed that in the news. So yeah, so when it came to everything going on around George Floyd, everything going around in the world with America, I felt so. I think what's made me go a bit crazy, I think in general, it made me very upset. I couldn't even properly watch the videos because I'm like, I am actually tired of this. Black people. I'm actually. It's exhausted. It's really tiring. You know what's going on. But what made me even sadder was when I got into hospital. So I was on call that week. So that's 13-hour shifts through the week. And I was like, nobody's talking about this. Literally, not one word.
Gosh, sis.
Like, we're literally surrounded by, as in, I'm here. Like, are you serious? No one is talking about this. There are huge protests happening in the UK now, protests happening in Netherlands, if you're not talking about America, protests happening in Europe about a serious situation, about things, about racial injustice right now. And we're not saying anything about it. And it made me feel very, you know, the Monday when I went, I felt a bit like, I just felt a bit like tired. I'm not going to say anything. Like, this is ridiculous. And I think the more no one said anything, the more it made me a bit like, so I was like, you know, I'll bring it up. My consultant then spoke about it. And then maybe the other girls in my team spoke about it. So I was like, okay, fair enough. And then later that day, I wouldn't go into it too much, but like a colleague made almost like a comment I was not very comfortable with about a patient's dreadlock, like the dreadlock someone had, which I thought was very irrelevant to what we were doing in handover, and also was very incorrect, you know, about the dreadlocks being dirty and things like that. And that in normal circumstances, you could also almost hide yourself. I think sometimes you don't want to be the person that talks too much, or you know, you may just be quiet. But I literally, in this situation, I was like, I am not standing for this. You need to be careful as doctors, as health professionals, as humans, those subconscious biases. Because my issue with England is that I think people feel like I don't say the N word. I love black people. I have black friends. I am not. But you need to understand what biases, what subconscious biases, why you cross over when you see a black guy wearing a hoodie, even if it's a designer one and it's not hood, you know, it's not what you think is hood like whatever. But you need to actually address those issues. And until I was able to almost call someone out and have an open conversation, I was like, you know what? It's okay to say. First of all, I don't know why people are afraid of saying black. Stop calling. You don't have to say African, Caribbean. I'm not even African Caribbean. I'm African. I'm Nigerian. I'm not from the Caribbean. You know, all this, like, everyone cannot just say black. That's absolutely fine. Because once you can say once you can say black, then maybe you can also speak about black issues. Maybe you can also speak about issues that affect me. And I think I had to sit down and also like almost, you know, the person started the conversation, but it's like you can almost like break. Then I can lend myself to like understand, to make you kind of see where I'm coming from, or to just speak my mind. And whether you see it or not, you need to understand that this is real and this is the reality.
Absolutely.
So I think what really got to me was kind of like the fact that we were working in the NHS, we're the most affected, we're the people dying the most with corona and the healthcare system. And for you to not address it at all, for it to not be a topic of conversation, for it to be playing on the news while we line up for lunch, but no one say anything, really made me feel angry. I was already almost weak from social media, but it made me feel like just a bit like, you know, there needs to be a change. but then I was able to like then reach out, and I was like, I'm not going to keep quiet this time. I'm just going to reach out and make sure that the hospital kind of sits up. And they had put a statement out, but I was like, that's not enough. We need to actually make some lasting changes and recognize the issues that even exist within the hospital and with patients. Like I've seen, I mean, I've seen and experienced racism through medical school, and now when you just random little things where they call you nurse or doctor instead of doctor, and this instead of that, you know. So it's it was very eye opening, and again, I think it was another period where a lot of people had to take that break in terms of mental. It was because I get it a lot.
Absolutely.
It weighs very heavy.
Very, very
And
heavily.
a lot. Like I felt so tired. I'm like, I'm going to work. I'm exhausted. I'm getting on my phone. Every time I get on my phone, I'm like, I get triggered again. Like, what's going on? Why am I doing this? You know, all of that. So it's good again to just know when to step back and take a break, reboot yourself, and then you can come up and actually make a difference and make a stand on something, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's funny because I felt like in all the conversations about race, people were saying things like, oh, you know, we understand that it's not a comfortable conversation. We understand that, you know, it can be awkward to talk about things. And I'm like, but what is this kind of like, it's almost as if there's this romanticizing comfortability, like as if anything, any change happens in comfortable places. Like, it's almost like, okay, you're uncomfortable, but what is the big deal in being uncomfortable?
And you know what? I've never
felt
felt
a reason.
Yeah, and I've never felt more comfortable in the most awkward or supposedly uncomfortable conversation I should have had, you know, with someone. I think no matter how uncomfortable something is, it's important that once you believe in something and you know what is right, we have to talk about it. If not, there will be no change. So we have to step out of that, you know, trying to be what is deemed as normal or not squishy, or you know, we just have to say what we need to say, whether you're comfortable about it or not. And I think that's something that would come with even just pushing a little bit, starting with it, talking with someone, talking with a friend. It's not saying just go straight away and start, you know, shouting. You can start on little, because I think people weren't sure how to express themselves, but you express yourself in something in a way that suits you. So people can go and speak on, you know, and they can be the people protesting and talking on the microphones, and that may not be you. You may just be someone literally on WhatsApp educating your friends through there, or signing your, you know, just do your own part in whatever way you can. But I feel like sometimes there's a lot of pressure for everyone to do one thing, you know. When you feel comfortable doing it the way you want to do it, then those conversations will not be as uncomfortable as you think. They won't be as awkward, because it's how, you know, how comfortable you feel in what you're doing. So
that's so good, because it's not, I feel like sometimes as well you need to give yourself time to process things. Like I feel like after George Floyd died, I felt like it was, because I feel like there was a point at the beginning of, I guess, the Black Lives Matter movement, I think, where it really picked up, I think in 2014. I feel like there was a point that I closed my heart, because I was like, there's only so much that a person can take. And I think it was after Tamir Rice died, and I'm like, this 12-year-old boy, the police arrived, in 36 seconds, he's dead. And I felt like after that, I just couldn't, like, everything about Sandra, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I felt like when Ahmaud died, when we saw the video, rather, because he passed a long time before, or rather he was killed a long time before the video came out, I felt like I posted about it, and I actually opened my heart for the first time in a very long time to just go back into that place again. And I feel like when George died, it was like, it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I like that you spoke about it, because I think racism isn't a Black person's problem, it's all our problem. And if it's always going to be a Black person's problem, we're going to be here forever.
There's not going to be, there's no change. It's everyone's problem, you know. For racism is not just, oh, it's a Black person, or it's whoever is affected by it in that moment. It's everyone's problem. And I think that's why, no matter how awkward you think conversations are, there are also people that are willing to open up their hearts and listen. And so just have a conversation and just try and be as comfortable as you can in whatever way is comfortable for you. I think.
Okay, so working in the medical field, and I've been seeing, I saw a video this morning, I don't know if you saw, about this lady on the BBC talking about, she's a midwife, and about how she went to deliver a baby. The lady was in labor, and then she came in, she introduced herself, and she turned around to just get a few things. And then the husband was like, we've tried to get away from people like you, so we don't want your black hand delivering our baby.
Oh my God.
And I just thought, this is
Oh,
like, your wife is in labor. Like, who even knew that you had time for this sort of behavior? And
like, I think that is, I think that is just ridiculous. But you know what? You have no idea people that have those type of views. You know, that is ridiculous. I'm here to, you know, to help you,
deliver your child.
to make sure your child is safe, to make sure you're safe. And what worries you is my black hands. What's bad about my black hands? As in,
honestly,
what's so bad? They've been trained. They've gone to I think, you know, in situations like this, it makes you really sad because you then realize how many times it happens. How many times this happens? Like my friends from medical school, even before all of this was happening, before Corona started in February and January, we've had 2 incidences where she's had to report someone for being racist.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I'm like, until you start bringing out figures of people that feel bullied and harassed and by patients, you know, by patients and by
this is in the UK.
This is in the UK. Until you start seeing the figures, gosh, I wish I had them. I had the figures with me. You would be like, wow. It exists, and it's really sad because the last thing you do when you come into work, you sacrifice your, you know, all your sacrifice years studying to help make people feel better, and for you to almost get a slap in the face like that is really like, but not at the end of the day. Also, is not all patients are like that.
Yeah.
But it's really sad when you hear stories like that because all she's doing is her job, and all she's trying to do is make sure that you have a safe delivery. But that's why it's important that we address those people. You know, now that there are people, you know, you're calling people out. It's important that you do that because people just need to be aware. Because they will tell you they're not. Some people will tell you that, oh, I'm not racist. That's just my preference. But that's not good enough.
I think it's also people's understanding of racism. Like when people are like, I'm not racist. I think one of the things we should do is just say, what would you say is a racist? And I think that's a great place to start with someone because it's not, because I also feel like sometimes it's not always different situations, different people need different approaches. So there's some friends that I have and they're like, oh, like one of my friends was telling me, he was like, I don't think that I'm actively racist. I'm like, so do you think you're passively racist? And he was like, I don't know. And then I pointed out a couple of things that have happened before and I explained why you might feel that way. And it's almost like, I know it's a hard time for people who genuinely want to listen. It's a hard time for them now because they're battling between making it better. They're battling between guilt and feeling a bit ashamed that they've even thought or behaved in certain ways. But that's okay. It's the whole goal of this is unity. The whole goal is reconciliation. So
exactly,
that's fine. You have to journey through it. But let's not discourage people too much from from stepping out. Before we round up, because probably as you heard, my timer has gone. So studying medicine is very big in Nigeria and in a lot of different cultures. Like being a doctor is what people want their kids to be. What would be your advice? What should people do before they jump into this?
The thing with medicine, I think it's always that thing where yes, parents, no matter, I think it's I think it's a Black, Asian, white thing. Everybody's my doctor. It's actually a universal thing. But really, really, before you do medicine, it's important that you want to do medicine. I don't know how to make that more clear. Like, I know there are pressures from parents and pressures from this and pressures from whatever. It's so important for you to actually want to do it because it's not an easy process at all. You do 6 years of medical school, come here, you have 2 years of intense working, you have another 5 years of, apart from the time it spends, it's a lot of emotions that you have in there. It's a lot of, you know, you're just being you. There's only so much separating. You can't be a doctor and then Joyce, you know, Joyce is incorporated into being a doctor. So I think you just need to make sure that you want to do it. Don't let anyone put any pressure on you because you will look for someone to blame when it gets stressful. And I feel like my parents thank their Jesus every day that they didn't say, do this thing. I don't know who put it in my head. I'm sure someone put it somewhere because I cannot remember how I decided I wanted to do medicine. All I know is that I've been saying, I want to be a doctor. Because I think I like my pediatrician so much. Dr. Oji, I loved her growing up.
Oh my gosh, in Dolphin?
Dolphin, yes.
She was mine as well. Oh my God.
I feel like I used to say I was sick just to go and see her. I don't know why. So
I did that too.
So from her, like, it's your fault. Like, she's put this in my head where I was like, I want to do it. And when I was applying for medicine, I remember being super stressed and tired and not sure what I was going to do. And I was almost I remember asking my mom clearly, I was like, Mom, do you think I should do medicine? Like, what do you think I should do? And if I don't, what else do you think I should do if I don't choose medicine? What other science? And she was like, Joy, I'm so sorry. I'm not making a decision for you. I am actually not making a decision. And you know what? If she did, it would have been perfect because I'd have been like, Mommy, it's your fault. Why? Like, it's stressful. It's your fault. So yeah, so I think do medicine because you want to do it. It's a very important rule. I mean, my perception on medicine, what I've realized in terms of like just career is, I think my passion is healthcare and medicine is a part of that. So in future, what I'd like to do is mix being a doctor with doing something else within healthcare, whether it's public. I feel like my passion is within like Nigeria, developing countries, that type of thing. So it's trying to mix being a doctor with business and innovation and consultancy. I did a work experience in health consultancy. So I kind of feel like even after your 6 years, even after this whole thing, there's still so much I can do with it. Sometimes like you almost like panic. I think no matter what career you're in, you panic like, what's the next step? What should I do? How should I prepare myself? Actually, I'm taking it one step at a time within medicine now. And then we'll see where I end up in terms of like incorporating it all. I think I just want to do too much. But right now I'll just focus on being a baby doctor and enjoy that process. So.
Well, thank you so much for taking us along on the journey. It's so insightful. It almost feels like it does feel like a personal diary. You're reading into it, and it's really great. So good on you for stepping out like that.
No, thank you so much. Like, I think this is probably the first time I've properly like said everything. And you know what, actually having something like this, I can never forget those feelings and those experiences. And I think I would even advise anyone, it doesn't have to be on Insta. I think this is actually almost a healthy way of using social media to just like organize your thoughts. But like, I think journaling and writing down, I may not be an everyday person, but I found myself in situations where I just feel like, oh, that's something I would like to talk about. I'll just kind of put it down there. So I think, if you're looking for a way to express yourself and put things out, consider journaling, consider a creative way, anything that works for you. Just do it, but take care of yourself through it all now.
Great. Thank you, Joyce. It was so great to have you.
Thank you.
It was so great to have you. Guys, make sure that you go on her Instagram page. It's called signed.Dr. So you can catch up, get the backstory of everything that we've been talking about. And I'm really enjoyed having you here. It's been such a good chat.
It's been amazing. I'm so proud of you, Tayo. I'm literally so proud. I can't wait.
Thank you.
I can't wait to hear all the other podcasts as well. Oh my God.
Once I press stop and record, I'll tell you one of the other ones coming out soon as well.
Okay, perfect.